I'll present my topic working together with Mikhail Rubin. So our presentation will be more broad in that, and I will speak in detail about this. I will then focus on the relevance of my work, starting with some background, looking at those steps that we are going to take within this way. Again, so this iteration work in this one, so we were moving along the line, upgrading, advancing, and working to improve the tool that you know very well. I'd like to speak more about the relevance of this work and its prerequisites. First of all, which is more important in Rusal. At Rusal, trees is a permanent function. We have a dedicated trees directorate in our company, so this is a big division, meaning that trees is quite broadly adopted and applied by many specialists, by many employees in our company at Rusal, but as a rule, not many of these employees, not all of them have in-depth knowledge on trees. So at early stages, it is very hard for them to select a tool to address a particular problem. And of course, trees has a lot of tools to offer, but again, we need to understand that those people do not have these profound knowledge on trees. The practice shows, our experiences showing that to address project tasks, we can use simple tasks such as tables, contradictions, and permissions. So this permission table, table of exception or contradiction overcoming. So in our portfolio, we have other tools which are available, and they all are focused on working with inventions of level 1, 2, sometimes 3, and for addressing such problems, this table is very instrumental. Everyone understands how to use it, and everyone understands what kind of ideas it can lead to. But at the same time, when we look at the practice, we've seen many situations like that when we have the solver trying to formulate a pair of characteristics without finding a pair in the table, finding an empty space, and sometimes people just get distracted because of that, and this reduced the interest for this kind of tool, the table, and they were confused about the efficiency of such a tool. We also wanted, together with the colleagues, to change things for the better, like Mikhail Semyonovich has already mentioned. Mr. Altshuler himself has laid the foundation for further development of this tool, the table. Speaking of all the tools that can generate anti-tools and other combined methods, so we can work to improve our methods and then also to add them to those volumes in the table to fill out those empty spaces. To address these tools, we have gathered our team and tried to work together to improve what has already been developed by Genrich Altshuler. A bit of history, just for your reference, for you to remember. Now, as you are aware, in the 21st century, and like our presentations are showing, we've been extensively using different ways of improving and automating our problem solving. Genrich Isaulovich himself was referring to that. He invented this machine called EuroRhyme, Eurotron. So again, it included some array steps, and this Eurotron machine could be used to get very quick responses to address training problems. So this is the first example of automating trees tools by means of using technology. Regarding those empty cells in Altshuler's table, I like to speak about it as well. There were several versions of the table, including one of the versions dated of 1964, which was very much different from the current version. One of them was 16 by 16 lines, and there was 101 empty spaces there. have empty cells. So again, a big percentage was not filled. In 1965, we had the same size of the table and only 4 cells remained empty. And then again, if we generalize these characteristics, there are more general characteristics like we are aware. Our current modern Altshuler's table is 39 by 39, and there are 233 empty cells, fields out of 1521 cells. So because the table itself, with those general approaches there, was developing quicker than those examples to avoid and to resolve typical contradictions emerged. That was very big, huge work, and physically it was not possible to keep pace with the development of trees, keeping up the quality. It was very challenging and not possible at all. Genrikh Isaulovich, Mr. Altshuler and his supporters kept on working, and currently the table we have is a very good tool, which is a successful one, and which many tree specialists are using. Now, removing those gaps, those spaces, why was it very hard? Because the trees development did not keep pace with the selection of high-quality examples. The updating of this list included very serious labor costs, and all that led to those new ways of development. So this was very huge and hard work, which required the involvement of many specialists. Besides that, the emergence of new technologies, new methods required the correction of those available methods that we had. So in such a way, in this vein, this work was continued, and then it all led and extended the removal of those gaps that we had in our table.
And again, coming to the very fact that now in the 21st century, we are coming again to the filling of the table of the metrics. Altshuler was saying that this metrics was rather simple, and before that it was made by people, but now with the computer and a lot of routine process could be automated, and of course it simplifies a lot the work on verification and development in the theory of resolution of inventive tasks. So the first conclusion of our huge work, it was the added matrix of Altshuler. So this is the matrix or table without any gaps and blanks, 39 by 39. How we did it? We were based on the math laws, and thanks to Mr. Sisoyev, he was helping us to check our ideas as a mathematician. So at first we were checking the regularity of metrics, and also we're trying to make it on other modern matrices. And considering this laws of regularities, we're trying to find any math laws, dependencies, and we were trying to spread on empty cells. And as the conclusion, we were comparing whether our field matrix is compared with the original matrix. So what does it mean? Is the math a repetition or the laws of all field matrices? And so we were finding this regularity, and we were filling this cell. So if it was close to the original genuine cell, so our coefficient of regularity could be taken into the operation, and on this hypothesis we're filling those empty cells which were in the classic table from the very beginning. I won't go deep into all particular numbers in detail about the our work and about our experiments. You can find in this article which we would prepare after this summit, but we have to note that we had a lot of different approaches. Altogether, we had 4 of them, and we found one which is mostly correct, and it was helping us to fill the Altshuler table matrix with the coefficient of regularity. And beside that, we were using normalization, but these are all math actions which allowed us to use our programmers, so not to fill out those blank spots with human hands, but to make it in automated way. Of course, it simplified a lot our experiments. Just you can imagine when you do it manually and when machine on the base of algorithm does it. So it's uncomparable things. So where you can test it. Edit table is in open source, open access, and you can test it and check it on your problems in Campina tree. So software is free of charge if it's interesting for you. So then we'll be very glad to see and to hear your feedbacks. I want to show that mathematical pattern was using 2 models on the basis of AI and expert model. Several experts of trees actually they prepared better models, patterns than was made by AI. And actually it confirms the thesis of the previous report that we have to be very cautious about ideas which were made by AI, and maybe anyways without AI, without our manual work, we cannot work now. So then we got our completed table. So now we don't have any empty cells, and we can get those couples of characteristics, pairs. And those cells were not filled up only because it was requiring a lot of work, and trees was developing leaps and bounces, and we were preparing new experiments, and probably Mr. Schuler left this work in order to move ahead, and those principles and those things were not really interesting for him at that stage of work. But those principles which were put by Mr. Altshuler was really significant, and we thought that next step of our work will be bipolar principles, as we call them. Those principles which besides themselves include the logics of standards and also lines of the development of neutral things. So it's the attempt to include in the text of one principle wide variety of tools without losing the instrumentality of those principles, and they would be really clear and simple for the usual user. And also we have to mention that in our practice we saw that mono principle doesn't give that efficiency as you can suggest, but combination of principles would offer us better solution. At least it was shown to us, and it's supporting the idea that we are moving in the right direction. So bipolar principles. Mikhail Semyonovich was talking a bit about those. So in many works of Altshuler, and in that actually article, Creativity as an Exact Science, we can see that those principles is very flexible things. We can combine them. We can look at them as the consequence one by one, or we can look at them like principle and anti-principle. That's why our work is the direct inheritance of what was suggested by the very Genrikh Saulich. So having made some work and having analyzed those standards which we have as of now, having analyzed those lines of development and trends which we have, we got 280 new poly principles. For example, 202, number 202 combine 19th, 20th, and 41st principles which were put by Mr. Schuler. And also we included, besides 40 principles, we added another 10. So we use that inheritance in maximal way. So more in detail, you can have a look at the presentation, which will be available to each of us after that. And also we plan to describe it in the article. Of course, we can discuss it. So let's have a look the example, at the example. For example, the principle 204, we called it dynamization, and we include the 15th dynamism, 14th spiridiodity, and then 18th use of mechanical vibration, and 21st breakthrough. So the text of description is not just some of all tricks which were before, but they're processed by expert, and the very text of those principles and considering those lines of development and those standards which include by their essence those mono principles. So how we were filling this table when we're transferring from mono principles to bipolar principles. For example, we have classic table with this 13th principle, and in that table we have 4 principles. Considering the logics of the previous slide, by the relevant way we were converting. To be clear, we were filling out the cells with the logics of bipolar principles. For example, if principle 204 was included 21st principle from the very beginning, so then it was put in our renewed matrix. So it was the next step. At first, we took completed tape matrix of Altshuler, and then we came to the table of bipolar principles. Of course, there is some difference. Instead of 39 characteristics in the classic matrix, we have 40 characteristics. Instead of 18 bipolar principles, we have 15 bipolar principles. And also we actualize 5 methods of contradiction resolution. Why we have 39 characteristics? In our mind, some genuine original characteristics, they are not proper for business rounding at all. For example, temperature, light, and etc. It is not possible. Of course, we can engage our fantasy, but in our mind, it won't be correct and it won't reflect business realities as a complex business system. So that's why having cleansed the metrics from all not proper characteristics, we completed this matrix with those characteristics which are proper for the direct business systems. For example, supply, sales, basic concepts with which we are able to describe practically any business. And by doing that, we reduce some quantity of bipolar principles. For example, the colors and so on, because we cannot transfer it to the business system, or it should have a lot of volume of imagination or fantasy, as we call it. And also the principle of contradiction, discrepancies, we already used logics of transformation and changes. At this very slide, you can see the a list of business characteristics which we got. So as of now, we have this very edition of that list. So we deal with metrics testing in the project which we implement in Rusal company and our friendly companies, partners, and also we accumulate our database to confirm our list or to add some new changes into it. So this tool is pretty alive and flexible. So that's why we treat it in flexible way. So here you can see bipolar principles for business. This is not simple copy of bipolar principles for the technical sphere, and considering specific of business principles as a complex social business system. Some transfer of some principles, for example, changing of the name, but keeping the content of bipolar principle, it is not really correct. So that's why we are, as a group of experts, we were brave to form this list of bipolar principles for the wide range of users to use it. Because when people deal with business circles, they're not technicians. For them, it would be easier to understand those words like uniformity, unification, previous action, or change of painting of colors, and etc. So in the consequent way, we reviewed the principles for business, methods for business. Our universal principles are still the resolution of the contradiction in the space and time, because it can be really comparable with social and technical system. But we reviewed two principles, and by doing that, we made systemic transfer through structures and actions, which is reflected in this business list, which I noticed before. And this is pretty universal category, and this principle can be used for business systems as well. And as per further plans, I cannot but mention that as of today, we are right here in that square 2024. So we reviewed bipolar principles, and this very list is available for testing in combinatorics, and we'll be very glad if you will be able to use this very metrics for the solution of your own tasks. Feedback is very valuable, and of course we want to have more users. And as for the next year, we are planning to develop our business metrics, and we will collect, of course, feedback, and we will add some corrections in the current characteristics and principles. And also we have a separate plans which are relevant to the change of the metrics and conversion in something a bigger concept. And of course, Probably you will read about that in the article on the conclusion of Tree Summit College. That's it from me. I will be glad to answer your question. If you turn on my camera, I will be glad. So, Marat Semyonovich, you have a floor. Well, first of all, thank you very much for that work which you've carried out and that very topic which you signified. In my mind, Trish metrics conquered the world. And because that metrics was pretty simple in the framework of understanding and perception, so it's pretty well demanded and actual, and you can work on it as per those cells which are empty. Back then, I was dealing with that, and I was asking why they were empty. And this hypothesis, which you suggested, that Altshuler didn't have much time to fill it out, and facts to overcome those contradictions which were on the line. So Altshuler didn't have time, and there were other tools. In 2022, together with my students, the students of Moscow State University, I have a bit different hypothesis. The goal was the same, to fill out empty cells. But I used another principle a bit. If it's interesting for you, Ms. Mikhail Rubin was saying about that, about he was saying about some separate sessions. I would communicate with you, but in general, good job, great. Thank you very much. Yeah, it will be very interesting to share our experience. Maybe we're following some steps which were made already, and I guess the round table on this topic would be very interesting for the wide circle of people who use it. And as per recommendations, maybe I missed that recommendation. If right now you have new tables, you've got new matrices. So now you prepared new matrix with bipolar system principle because you've got computer field. So maybe you would fill out some cells with some real results and some links to the real actual actions to confirm those combinations. Yeah, thank you very much. We will think about that, how to implement it. So there is another question. Do you have any video lessons on operation of working with Campina?
Да, есть ли видеоуроки, примеры по работе в Campina?
Да, мы записывали такие видеоуроки. Я не уверен, что они сейчас сохранились на заблокированном Ютубе.
Yes, we do have these videos. We have received such requests, and I believe it's possible to make these video lessons available and also do that publicly. So I think it is possible to do that. We used to have these lessons, but maybe they are no longer relevant partly. Or maybe YouTube is not the best platform to learn anything, not the best platform for learning. There was a question for Anton Kozhemeka if we have a matrix for that as an additional document. Mikhail Semyonovich responded to that this matrix is actually integrated in Campino trees and with the addition of more features. There is no dedicated documents, so possibly there can be more guides publicly available when they are finished. Yes, this is correct. Also, going forward, we were planning to have this as an additional guide, to publish an additional guide about the tables and also regarding each of the methods with illustrations and with demonstrations like what Marat has mentioned. Yes, we are planning to do that, but we believe that this is something we need to work on. We need time for that, and I thank you for these comments and questions. We don't have any time
Александр,
left.
холодно
I
почитаешь в
will
чате,
now
я
give the
прошу
floor to
времени,
Dr.
я
Farber, and there
передаю
is another
слово
comment.
доктору Фарберу.
Да, спасибо.